Hello, everyone. I am Brian. This is Matt the Rookie. You are Chords and Notes Nation. That is Motorhead, who apparently are the originators of the song 1916. Matt and I last weekend did the Sabaton version of 1916, and somebody had suggested, or at least let me know, that this was a Motorhead original. Obviously, we were picking up on that reference with the flag in the Sabaton video and the Lemmy Kilmister tribute photograph. So we understood there was a connection there. We just didn't understand that this is the original. So we're following up with that with watching this. It says it's the World War One tribute video. So I previewed it just a little bit to make sure I could find the right video, and it looks like it's the song with a bunch of still photos that we can look at. So that's what we're gonna go with. I'm excited about this one because I want to hear Lemmy. I want to hear him sing this song. Those of you who are new here, welcome. Please check out the playlists. Please subscribe. Please like. That will grow and expand the channel. If you want to go above and beyond, there are 3 ways to do that. You can check it out in the description box below. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's do this thing.
Yeah, it's fun.
By the way, those of you who are new, we're always raw, honest, and unedited here. It's you, it's us in this case. It's the living room, it's the television. This is how I do it. Sorry if it's going to get loud by you.
That's fine.
16 years old when I went to war to fight for a land fit for heroes.
Such an iconic voice. You know it's him. You know.
Side and a gun in my hand, chasing my days down to zero. And I marched and I fought and I bled and I died, and I never did get any older. But I knew at the time that a year in line was a long enough life for a soldier. We all volunteered and we wrote down our names, and we added 2 years to our ages. Eager for life and ahead of the game, ready for history's pages. And we crawled and we fought and we hoped till we stood 10,000 shoulder to shoulder. A thirst for the hum, we were food for the gun, and that's what you are when you're soldiers. I heard my friend cry, and he sank to his knees, coughing blood as he screamed for his mother. And I fell by his side, and that's how we died, clinging like kids to each other. And I
Singing like kids to each other.
Yeah.
and the guts and the blood, and I wept as his body grew colder.
did, huh?
Freedom Boat.
Okay, Freedom Boat.
Raw, I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the way we roll, folks. Go ahead.
So, I mean, obviously, Motorhead. When I think of Motorhead, I'm a wrestling fan, so I think of Time to Play the Game with Triple H, King of Kings. I'm gearing up, ready for a fight. This is completely different than that. It is much more somber, much more reflective. Even the melody, the beat to it, it's not even like, it doesn't come across like a hard metal kind of song.
Right.
It's much more. It's much more about the symbolism. I think the lyrics there, like kids clinging together. We sent our children to battle. Something that, quite frankly, nowadays would be, unfathomable to us. Like, could you imagine, an 18-year-old going to war? It's hard to believe that that's how it was back then for like my grandfather's generation, and this would be the generation before him even.
Well, even still, I mean, if you caught the lyric where we would line up and sign our names, but we'd add 2 years.
Yeah.
So even younger than that, 16 years old, 15, maybe even who knows how young they were, when they went out.
And it is a very different mindset too. Some people lied about their age.
Yeah.
So they could serve.
Yeah.
Because it was much more, I don't want to say it was more patriotic back then, but it was a different mindset. Like, everybody was serving, so I feel obligated to, go into the service,
And I'm glad you brought that up, because so how am I going to navigate these waters? Okay, so you're talking World War I.
Yeah.
And if you look at U.S. history, what were the major entanglements that we had prior to that? Going back, you had the Revolutionary War.
Sure.
You had the Second Revolutionary War, 1812, which basically that was an extension of the first one. You had the Civil War. You had the Spanish-American War. Those were the major ones.
Teddy Roosevelt, I believe. Yeah.
You had a lot of the military entanglements with the indigenous tribes out west. Okay, so I mean, maybe not a actual war in that sense, still functioning as a warlike situation under manifest destiny, right? If you remember from your history class, where we're pushing, we're going as far as we can because, someone got it into our collective psyche that this is a divine thing, that we're supposed to take this continent and keep, even though it was still the push to get to China. Because remember, we originally, the Europeans, originally came here because they were looking for that direct, okay? They just got delayed by a continent, okay? And they needed to battle whatever battles were intrinsic to that. So why am I bringing all of this up? Because what that did is that brought up this cultural psyche of, especially the Revolutionary War, because we took off we shook the chains of tyranny for freedom. And so up to World War I, before the United States, after World War I became the military machine for the world, we only had certain righteous wars that we were fighting for whatever that nationality cause was.
Sure.
Nationalism cause is the word I'm looking for. So now you've got World War I.
The switch flips, doesn't it?
And it absolutely does flip. Now we can go back to why did it flip? We can go back to who generated this war and why they generated this war and all of that, and that's not going to be talked about here. But going off of what you said, why are children signing up to go to war? What would motivate them to do that? And I think
it was propaganda.
It was, but it was based off of, hey, this is what we do.
Yeah.
We rise up for the righteous cause and we go fight it.
But as we saw, and we talked about this in the last video, they come back very different if they come back.
Yeah.
And, you kind of saw that, and I don't know where these clips have, someone just took clips, put them together to, associate them with the song, or, these clips have anything to do with the the actual initial content. But you kind of see in the beginning, people look, I don't want to say excited, but they look proud to be serving. And then as the video goes on, you just start to see, um, you see caskets, you see people bandaged up from burns, and
Yeah,
just that
it was nasty.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
and it starts to kick in. So the message, and now knowing that last week's song was a cover,
Yeah.
I think they did a good job last week of conveying the message is that war is bad. war is bad. And
Well, I mean, you think about World War One, and you think about because you're talking about the bandages and the burns, and because all the gas and all of the new technologies. Well, we have these new ways to dispatch people,
yes,
so we need to find a way to see if they work. And what better way than to have you think about military strategy also, right? So this is the first time trench warfare was introduced. But you're still working off of this idea from antiquity of lines of men rushing towards other lines of men. Well, now we've got things that can take care of multiple people at once,
it's a very different landscape now.
and they're rushing at us. So guess what we're gonna do? And hence then we had those images of the fallen and the wounded. There was the one image, I don't know if you caught it, where the nurse was working on the guy and he had the mustache and I think a smile, but that was actually a plastic prosthetic. I'm almost guaranteeing you there was nothing under that prosthetic worth saving, which is why he was wearing it,
Yeah.
And you just think about the human cost, not only in lives, but in one of those images I was thinking, was it better to actually have survived? Or would it have been better to die? Because there was some nasty stuff that was being introduced on the battlefield back then.
That would be a question for those who fought. And,
Yeah.
I don't believe there's
I think the
anyone in
last
the
one
US,
passed away
yeah,
not too long ago.
in the U.S. for sure.
Yeah.
One other thing too is, we look at everything from an American perspective because we're Americans. So, the perspective of Europeans who, where this was being fought in their backyard,
Yeah.
is obviously going to be very, very different and maybe a little
Right.
bit more. There's a lot more hesitancy for the right reasons too.
Right.
Right. Just imagine, the last war fought on American soil was Civil War, right? You're thinking.
No.
Well, I guess I mean unless you consider Pearl Harbor, but the Continental 48.
9/11.
Yeah, that would be the last attack.
Right.
But we haven't had
Actual.
armies.
Right.
An army invading the Continental 48. I mean, whereas in Europe, it's very different.
Unfortunately, I have to say, way of life there. If you look at European history,
it
that's
has been, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So as far as the song is concerned, I'm with you on that. Where it has definitely had a different feel.
Yeah.
It was synths, and basically that's about it, and vocals. I didn't. Was there drum march?
Yeah, I mean there was a beat to it.
Beat to it. So maybe
but
some drums, but
it was very different than any Motorhead
Yeah.
song. It was not a song that is meant to jazz you up or get you ready for something.
yeah.
It is very reflective.
Right.
I keep going back to the word reflective. That's
But that's an
the
important
I'm
word.
going for. Yeah, and I think that's what it's meant to do.
And whoever put this video together in the Ken Burns style, I mean, that was exactly what it was meant to do, was to get you to reflect on it, because I think they matched the images with the words pretty spot on. It's like you said, when it first started, you're seeing them signing up and getting ready to march out to war, and that's what the lyrics were
It's telling
reflecting.
a story.
And then, yeah, absolutely, and it just kind of embellished that. And that's why visual literacy is really, really important, because think about this. Now, you were talking about perspective, the American perspective, the European
Yeah.
perspective, whatever. Well, are we buying what they're selling, or are we autonomous, free-thinking people that can sit and look at a photograph that happened and analyze that and come to our own conclusion of what we're seeing, rather than this is what you're supposed to think about.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And I'm trying
absolutely.
to avoid certain trigger words here. But that's the whole idea of being able to think for yourself. Now, a snapshot in time doesn't tell the context. It only shows what's happening in that moment, but you can gather a lot of clues that way.
Right. I mean, this was, I don't know, like a 4 or 5 minute video. You're not going to understand the tragedy of World War One through these images that were 5 minutes long,
Right.
or even a song, quite frankly. But if it gets you thinking about it, if it gets you thinking differently about war, and at least you start asking those questions internally that maybe you would otherwise have ignored because you were told to think a certain way, then I think it served its purpose. And that to me is like, we need to have an honest discussion about war, and that's what it was trying to.
And that's the beauty of music I will always stand by, is it's a blessing and a miracle given to us, because if you think about what music is at its core, it's vibrations. It's sound vibrations. Okay? Layered on top of each other, whether it's voice or instruments or whatever. At the heart of it, it's sound vibrations that interact with our brain and inspire us to think, to feel, to whatever it is. And I think that's
It evokes emotion. Yeah.
think about that. Just vibrating sound, modulating waves can get you to have some sort of response. It's pretty freaking amazing. It's like in science, right? Where you drop the caffeine in with the little amoebas and you just watch them just kind of spin out of control, and you're like, that's freaking cool. Well, that's kind of like what sound is.
That's what your brain
with
is
music.
doing.
Yeah, I know.
That's what Brian's brain is doing, everybody.
Coffee. All right. Well, that's all I have for this one. I enjoyed it. I liked it. This is not a compare contrast with Sabaton Motorhead. I think we had to do our due diligence and go to the original.
Yeah, and they were both very, very good, and they both get you thinking. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the message of the lyrics. So
Absolutely.
if Sabaton was hoping to play off of that, they definitely succeeded at that, and certainly Motorhead did too.
Yeah. So good job. All right. Cool. All right. Thank you guys. Thank you very much for joining us, and God bless you. We're living in extreme times. Get the promises of Joshua 1:9 in your head. Live them. Love them. Jesus loves you. Talk to you later.